Nice skull. Point Break or Bad Boys 2?
Which one do you think I prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
You're a fucking miserable drunk. You fucking remembering your fucking lines. I practiced them and now I don't look like I goddamn practiced them. You're sitting there like a fucking baboon. I hate fucking whiskey, sir. I couldn't stop at fucking 3 or 4 out of 8. Why?
I ask you, to what end? Dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same. And now it's here. Or should I say, I am.
Oh my God!
Okay, wait.
This is not looking good, Pam.
Michael, do you need me to call an ambulance?
No, I want you to pick me up.
Okay, wait a sec. I thought you said that you were hurt.
I am hurt. I hurt my foot.
Pam.
I want to come to work, but I need you to come and pick me up.
Oh, God!
Hey, whoa, Michael.
Oh, God!
It's okay. It's Jim. Just say again really loudly what happened.
Okay, I burned my foot very badly on my Foreman grill, and I now need someone to come and bring me into work.
You burned your foot on a Foreman grill.
I enjoy having breakfast in bed. I like waking up to the smell of bacon. Sue me. And since I don't have a butler, I have to do it myself. So, most nights before I go to bed, I will lay 6 strips of bacon out on my George Foreman grill. Then I go to sleep. When I wake up, I plug in the grill. I go back to sleep again. Then I wake up to the smell of crackling bacon. It is delicious. It's good for me. It's a perfect way to start the day. Today, I got up, I stepped onto the grill, and it clamped down on my foot. That's it. I don't see what's so hard to believe about that.
Welcome to the Backroom Podcast. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe.
Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Backroom Podcast. Hope you guys having a fantastic evening. As you see, we are sitting in the nice, cool, calm weather, little spooky season, and got the nice little fire in the background, get a little fake cozy. It's not really warm in here. I got the air conditioning on for whatever reason, but that's a fake fire. We ain't burning down today. But guys, I just want to say we're here talking Venom. Let there be carnage. The very much, I don't know if it's highly anticipated or highly disanticipated enough to where it might be anticipated, is finally here after being delayed an entire year. But you know what? I can't just break it down by myself. So I got my man Tucker here to help me break down this movie. What's going on, my man?
I'm very excited to be here. Mostly not to talk about the film, but to make a new podcasting friend in this world. This is our first time talking, and I'm very excited for the two of us to get to know each other through the wonders of Andy Serkis's 2021 classic, Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
No, yeah, dude. That's why I love the podcasting game and doing this weekly with different hosts, is just having a good conversation, meeting some new people, talking to some old people, and you'll definitely be back on in the future, man. It's great having you here. And guys, I'm doing a new video format. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Testing the waters out because I feel like audio is just kind of boring nowadays, especially since I post this on YouTube. But you know what? Let's get just right into this. I don't even know what to call it. I always call this movie now. You know that show on HBO, Scenes of a Marriage, or Scenes from a Marriage? I'm like, this is just a PG-13 superhero version of that. Just two people in a wedded couple with just arguments. Just they live off of each other's arguments. But I gotta tell you, the first movie was, I'm just gonna round it up to 2 hours. It was like an hour and 55 minutes.
Yeah, probably
at that point. You're sitting in the theater for 2 hours, right? This movie cuts its runtime by 20 minutes.
Yes.
And I'm just going to start off with the pacing of this movie. I don't really think there's too much of a plot summary for this film either.
No.
It's just
at least not one that I can remember.
Dude,
having seen the film last night, by the way.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I saw it yesterday afternoon, like 4:00, and I'm just like, I struggle to remember what this movie was really about other than having marriage issues.
Sure, yeah.
That's literally how it felt. They just took a book out of a marriage story with the ScarJo and Adam Driver. Mm-hmm. They're just like, we want this just funnier, more comedic, and more "you're a pussy" type of line. Because
Yeah.
who doesn't like Venom calling Eddie Brock a pussy? But
100%.
yeah, when I got out of this movie, I thought to myself, I'm like, there's no way this movie was an hour and a half with the credits. Like you sit in the movie theater and the post credit scenes like maybe 20 seconds after the movie ends, and they show like the little title card. So it's not really a post credit. But not here to debate whether it's a post credit scene or not. But I find that this movie is an hour and 23 minutes without credits. And I still felt like I was sitting there for 2 hours, my man.
It's fascinating that they decided to make this such a short movie. I mean, most movies nowadays, not counting animated films, very explicitly ones made for children, are very close to 2 hours. 2 hours is the average runtime. And Andy Serkis was like, all right, hey, I gotta make this movie. We're contractually obligated to get a sequel to Venom out there. So let's just make this a speedy 90-minute film. You'll be in there, you'll be out of there, it'll go in one ear and out the other, and it'll have a post-credit scene. And that's all that this movie is. It's lead up to the 20-second post-credit scene. And it puts it in a really interesting position because we're so used to, as superhero movie watchers, those movies come out constantly, used to our movies leading somewhere. There being a vision behind them, being connections, being momentum to the universe, and this just does not have any of that. And it's an interesting throwback to the Amazing Spider-Man movies, to the mid-tier X-Men movies, where clearly the people making them don't give that much of a fuck about the source material. They're just putting it out there to have a comic book character on the big screen, and that's it. There's so little thought put into this movie, but I would say that I prefer that it's shorter because I personally didn't feel that it dragged too much. I thought it was very snappy, and when we were getting to that end action sequence in the cathedral, I'm like, oh, holy crap, this is almost over. And then we were out of there, and that was my experience with Venom Let There Be Carnage.
Dude, Venom Let There Be Carnage is literally the title of the film. Like that is a very good representation of what this movie is, because this movie tries to be so many different things. It tries to be a bromance love story at the heart of it, also while trying to get back together with his ex-fiance who they don't say they love each other, but they've said it in each movie, and they've kissed while she's still with the best amazing man on earth named Dan. Like it truly makes no sense. And they throw some awful hints at that god awful makeout scene in the first movie. And I truly was scared they were about to go there when they were when she was bringing Venom to Eddie in the pre-scene. I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna kiss and they don't need to. They're literally just standing there, just like they were standing in the woods. Please don't do this. Thankfully, they just hugged. I'm like, wow, that was a nice sentimental moment.
Bullet dodged.
Dude, honestly, this movie dodged a lot of bullets like that, but there's something about this film that's very massive, and this is the very first live action version of Carnage.
Yes.
I just want to go over his whole timeline within the film.
Sure.
I guess we're just going to break it all down because I've got some very vocal opinions about what they've done with the character in this movie. And I'm sure you guys already know. Spoilers, it's in the title. Just double downing on it just in case you guys decided not to read and just be like, oh, look, Venom review, hour and something, whatever. You guys, it's spoiler territory from here now.
100%.
100%.
This movie is honestly not that interesting if you don't talk about the spoilers. If you try your best to avoid talking about the end of this film, the ending sequences where the character arcs lead to, and of course the post-credit scene, I don't even know what you would say about this film.
I mean, that's pretty much why I stay away from spoiler-free reviews now before films come out, because they might as well just be an audio version of a trailer. Like they tell you what they like or the concept of the movie, and then they're like, "But wait, there's more. But you have to watch the movie." Like, bro, that's what a trailer's for, is to tell me to watch. Like, I get it, but Yeah, dude. Cletus Cassidy was introduced with the worst fucking wig in the world in the first movie.
Yes.
And I'm glad they got rid of that.
Yeah, they improved it. It's still not
improved
great,
something there.
but it's better.
Dude, it's so much better. They improved that with the curly hair wig. I'm very sure they vocally knew they fucked up.
Yes, 100%.
He became a living meme for a good minute. But I gotta say, what do you think of Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy?
I'm pretty conflicted on that performance of that character. I'm actually pretty interested in the idea of having a serial killer as a villain in one of these sillier Marvel movies. It's an interesting interplay that he has with his sort of poetry and trying to manipulate Eddie Brock, but being stuck in a cage. All of that is interesting. And I think Woody Harrelson does a fine enough job for it. He's always got his wide smile and his crazy eyes. And there's a fun charm to that. But I also know Woody Harrelson can do a lot more. And I think the problem is that this character is given a lot of screen time, but in some ways not enough. It's more screen time than we're used to getting from villains in these kind of movies, but he also, when you get to the end of his character, you're like, yeah, okay, that felt just about what I expected. And I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't something more.
No, honestly, I totally agree. And that kind of leads into one of my, I'm just going to say major flaws of this film, because you could literally get rid of this character and would not really impact the story. And that's the Shriek character. I really felt like they added this emotional weight to Cletus Cassidy. If you guys know Cletus from the comics, he's ruthless. This man does not care about anybody. He slaughters everybody, like literally the baddest of the bad. He is a serial killer. He's a murderer. And they give him this huge emotional weight, and he does not feel very threatening throughout this movie. And I don't know if that was the performance or the way they decided to write Shriek and his relationship, because I much rather have preferred get rid of the Shriek character, because it doesn't lessen Carnage or even Cletus Cassidy in this matter, and it just lets us have more time understanding Cletus. Now, I will say the little animated scene of his story of how his parents beat him and how he would like kill his grandmother by pushing her down the stairs was really cool. But I would have liked to see more, and I feel like Shriek took up all that time. That really went nowhere for that character. She was really there, not for Cletus or the story, but more to just continue the detective storyline going into the next movie.
Yeah, she felt more like a MacGuffin. She's the reason why Cletus is interested in staying alive, to be honest. I mean, they do have their relationship. That's the point of Cletus's character and his motivation, but when she just feels like a D-tier character, a character that has superpowers and is involved with the villain and has this whole Ravencroft backstory, could be really interesting, but she doesn't get a ton of screen time. She gets no development. In fact, she kind of almost changes her motivation on a dime at the end, where she's like trying to say, no, don't kill people. I don't know what that was about, but it was really disappointing, because she could be an interesting character. And I think if their relationship was given more screen time, it would have been fleshed out and it would have actually felt compelling. But Cletus felt crazy, and you knew that he was dangerous because he had killed a bunch of people, and there was bodies, and the families of the people he killed were watching him die or whatever. But it is a PG-13 movie. Carnage is not ripping off people's heads. Well, he is ripping off people's heads, but you don't see it. Cletus is not stabbing people through the heart. Well, okay, he is, but you're not allowed to see it. There, you gotta just show cars exploding. They gotta show cutaways for the thing. So you're never able to really see him do the damage that you know he's doing, and it's a really weird, jarring disconnect from two characters, Carnage and Venom, who are violent characters.
No, yeah, and I think that goes into my overall problem with the movie is its rating really hinders its true experience, because I remember sitting there watching it, and you watch Carnage just go through the prison, and he's literally just slaughtering everybody.
Yeah.
But during that scene, I'm not paying attention to what Carnage does, but to what the aftermath looks like.
Sure.
And every time he'd bite the head off, it's literally just some weird CG bubble with no blood, no
Yeah.
nothing. It's just like a complete disconnect. I expect like some of his spine to come out, blood. Like this
Yeah.
character does some grotesque things. Like his tongue is fucking massive and he shoves it down a guy's throat.
Yeah, that was the weirdest one for like being censored. Is because they're building up to that, and there's like a slow moment where like, oh shit, he's doing this. I can't believe he's doing it. And then the guy's just thrown to the side in a very like underwhelming fashion. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. They can't actually show like his tongue bursting out of the guy's stomach or whatever.
And I find it really weird because they literally show an execution in the film.
Mhm.
Like a successful execution, they're fine with showing, but God forbid we have blood.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't even need the spine or anything. You just need to show like blood going all over. God forbid you have blood and it's something red, a color, guys,
Mhm.
right? Color. Who knew a color would be so harmful? But you know what? Just killing a dude randomly by injecting drugs into him
Yeah.
is fine. You know, PG-13 that bitch. And yeah, I think the PG-13 really hinders this movie. And it's kind of a running joke, and I guess you can say PG-13 like comic book movies
Sure.
specifically, is that they always have to use the one F-bomb. They
Mhm.
always say
Oh
fuck
yeah.
once. Like
Yes.
it seems like a
You
running
may say
gag at this
fuck
point.
once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like we get the rule of fuck once. Like it's such a weird rule, but
Yeah.
they always make use of it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if they just used fuck throughout this whole movie, it would just my experience would have been better.
Yeah, because it's not because I hate the idea of there not being F-bombs in PG-13 movies. They need to draw the line somewhere, whatever, it's ratings. But the fact that they still allow one, and everyone that uses it has to call such close attention to the fact that, hey, pay
We
attention,
said
guys.
it.
We're using the F-bomb. This is important. This is a moment. It
The
makes
one
it
check
feel out of place. Yeah, exactly. Like they're checking off a box. Like, oh, okay. Where in the script? Let's triple highlight it. Make sure it says the F word. All right. Oh, you got the F word. Good. All right. Clean our hands of that. We're done.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. And I remember going into just the production of this
Mm,
movie and them finding a director, and very, very thrown off guard when Andy Serkis joined the board. And
yes.
I feel like a lot of people were like that because he was a pretty prestigious film actor
Yeah.
and filmmaker in the world of CG beings or being a
Hmm.
CG character in a realistic world or mocap. So that really gave me hope because I don't know about you, but I thought that first movie was a fucking disaster.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, why would someone so good sign up for this to the sequel of a fucking mess?
Yeah.
So on one hand, I'm like, okay, I like this because I know his work. I know he's given us good content on
Hmm.
both filmmaking and acting side. So he knows what he's doing, especially in a dual role that Tom Hardy has to play
Yeah.
with the CG character. So that's what I saw going into it. But then I also saw, I'm like, but it's Venom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You sit there like, there's something that's telling me, like, I don't know. And unfortunately, I feel like this movie is very fucking jarring with its editing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that mostly boils down to what we started with, which is the runtime. They got to cram a lot of stuff in here and it's always jumping around. And they make some really weird choices in terms of the pacing of this to split up Eddie and Venom. So they're having their own storylines and you're still following Cletus and you're cutting back to Shriek sometimes. It's like, oh, all right, we got to keep track of all these things. But in the end, they all kind of just funnel together in a pretty natural way, I guess. I didn't feel like it didn't make sense for them to come together, but it felt like why break it up in the first place? We have to have Eddie and Venom have some conflict, but if it's just going to lead to there being more disjointed scenes where these characters aren't developing together, then I feel like that hurts the overall story of your film.
No, yeah, absolutely agree. And that goes to something I think I was watching today about Andy Serkis was actually talking about why the runtime was so much faster or
Sure.
so much
Okay.
quicker
I haven't heard
than
this.
the first movie, because like I said before, it's like almost a 30-minute difference. And he's like, the first film gave us all the setup. You needed those 20 or 30 minutes to set things up, which
Mhm.
personally, the 20, 30 minutes in that film didn't help very much in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
film. So I'm just going to ignore that fact from that comment. But he goes on to say that now we're in the meat and the gritty. Now this is where we see the action
Mhm.
of this character. And I sit there and I'm like, this is the weirdest fucking comment of all time,
Yeah.
because I feel like if you think about it, like this is relatively the same movie. The
Mhm.
first two acts are just set up and build up, and then the third act is when they finally meet and brawl.
Yeah.
Because the first movie, that's what happened. He didn't meet up with what was it, Riot, until the
Yes,
very
right.
end, and Riz Ahmed's character, and that's when they fought. Like they had a small interaction in the beginning,
Mhm.
getting him fired, and then the small one getting captured after that. Other than that, that was it. And
Yeah.
the same thing happened. You only see him and Cletus together in the jail until the end, pretty
Mhm.
much. I feel like I might be missing maybe one scene here and there where they saw each other, but I'm pretty sure I'm not missing a scene. And it just feels like there's two different stories that don't meet up at the end very well.
Yeah, I mean, they're always telling Cletus's story in the background, and I think that's part of the reason why his character feels a little bit disjointed, is because it does feel like it's important, but they're not giving it the development that it requires to feel nuanced. They're like, okay, there is nuance here because he has a love for this person and he wanted a family, but he's also a maniacal guy. So it feels disbalanced, but I think the thing I want to focus on here, what you were talking about with the first movie, is where each one shines. I don't think either of them are good movies. In fact, I think they're both bad movies. But where I think this one is still stronger than the first one because it leans so heavily into the comedic aspects of Eddie and Venom interacting and having Venom constantly quipping in the back of Eddie's mind and that leading to some mildly comedic scenarios that I still felt like this had it a better grasp on what the identity of the comedic tone should be.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and that goes into the things that I do heavily agree or like in this movie. I was pretty on board actually for the first two acts. It was the third act that really dropped it
Yeah.
subpar for me. Like I truly think it's a terrible third act, and
Yeah.
I think those first two acts really build, like you said, on the relationship of Eddie and Venom. And I feel like in this movie, Tom Hardy is much more comfortable in the role.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that is because of Andy Serkis right there. I think the real true shining thing that comes out is Andy Serkis helped him really grasp the idea of working with a CG character and only
Mhm.
using like a prop head to talk to. Like Tom Hardy, when they were in the scenes in the apartment fighting about going out and eating, the
Yeah.
scene where they separate finally, Tom Hardy would just have like a little thing in his ear listening to the dialogue of Venom, and he
Mhm.
would say his own in between. And every time like they would hit each other, or like when Venom broke his nose, he would make like the sound effect to help the editing process. So it's these small little nuances within the performance and stuff like that that I feel like we wouldn't see because of post production
Sure, yeah.
that really does shine in the final act that you don't really notice. And like I said, Tom Hardy feels much more comfortable in this role. I don't know if you feel the same.
No, I definitely do. I think looking back, I actually rewatched the trailers for the first movie last night. I love watching people reacting to trailers, and I like looking back and seeing what people thought initially about things. And one of the most annoying things I think about the first movie was that weird accent that Tom Hardy had as Eddie Brock. Really obnoxious,
Like
really
some Brooklyn accent.
yeah, like close to
In San
nasally. Yeah, this really weird combination of things going on, and that's been toned down in this. Thank the Lord. He's still got somewhat of an accent, but it feels a little more natural. And I do think that you're right. He shines a lot more in this role. I think he's the highlight of the film is Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock. He's kind of the diamond in the rough because Woody Harrelson doesn't get enough to work with, and the other actors are kind of put on the back burner. But seeing him interact with nothing and have those moments of emotion, not super emotionally investing emotion, but he's yelling at nothing, or he's angry, or he's crying, or he's talking with Venom, or he's reacting to something that's not happening around him in the world. It's impressive, and it actually is handled very well.
No, yeah, and I think that's the one thing the first film did do well, and that's what I
Yeah.
appreciate is they really expanded on and really did figure that out is the interaction between the symbiote Venom and Eddie. The
Mhm.
way he just comes like off his back to
Yes,
look
yes.
around to have that face to face interaction really gives you more of a complex relationship because that's like a very subtle design. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't realize either is because it's supposed to be a character within him.
Yes.
How do you get those two different personalities conflict rather than having them show one like Venom coming out or
Mhm.
Eddie's in the body
Yeah.
instead, like that way is, and I think having those face to face interactions really do support the really good relationship that they build in this. And
Yeah.
you know what? I kind of felt bad. I'm like, man, I get Venom. He just wants to eat people. I mean, I'm like, bro, I'm sorry. You just have to stick to M&Ms and tires, bro.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
that was absolutely fucking hilarious. But speaking of which, what did you think about their relationship in this movie, and how do you think, like, with the whole breakup scene and Ray Venom, who I truly inspire to be one day? What do you
Yeah.
think about all that?
I think it's all fine. I mean, it feels like the natural progression of what would happen is they've spent time together. Of course, they're bickering. Venom is headstrong. He's foolhardy, and Eddie's got to rein him back and be responsible. So there's a nice interplay there, but it does just feel like, yeah, this is what would happen in this scenario. Like it's a continuation of that first story. I don't think it does anything surprising with their relationship. It does just feel like the natural continuation, though I think it works. But on the whole, I think extrapolating that out a little bit to the rest of the film, this does just feel like a continuation of that story. It doesn't feel like it does anything super special. If you really break down what happens in this film, even within the two of them in their relationship, not a lot happens. Like if you look at the status quo from the end of Venom to the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage, Cletus Cassidy is dead. Uh, Carnage is dead. Shriek is dead. And the only real things that happen through the course of this 90-minute film are that Eddie and Venom are on the run from the law. Anne is married, which doesn't really matter that much. And the cop guy, Mulligan, is now a metahuman of some sort. I think he's Riot in... No, Riot. Toxin in the
Toxin,
comics.
yeah,
Yeah.
Toxin.
So that just feels like, okay, yeah, we're setting up another goo fight monster for Venom to deal with next time. But there's so little stakes in this film because so little changes from beginning to end. It's almost impressive, but in like a sad way.
It's funny you mentioned stakes because I was talking to a friend about this after I got out yesterday afternoon, and I want to know if you felt the same as when Carnage or Cletus was holding Annie over the clock tower edge ready to drop her. Did you get any Amazing Spider-Man 2? I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna Gwen Stacy this. Please don't Gwen Stacy this. Because I'm like, coming out of this, you really notice that Tom Hardy wrote this movie. Like
Yeah.
they do not care about the source material, or
Yeah.
I don't want to say they don't care about the source material. They pick and choose what they want to care about. I
Mhm.
should say. I feel like they got the connection between Eddie and Venom right. Everything else they threw out. I feel like.
100%. I mean, it just feels a little bit empty as a universe, as a comic book world. There's very little going on. You have the relationship between Eddie and Venom. We know that symbiotes exist. We know there are other metahumans. I mean, is Shriek a mutant? We don't know. Like, I know that she has a symbiote in the comics, but that's not introduced here at all. So there's a lot of weird tangents you can go on, but because of that, it's just you look at Cletus Cassidy making a reference to Spider-Man, saying they don't need a protector and smashing a spider. If that's and there's like a Daily Bugle thing on a website in the background. If that's the best you can do for your Easter eggs, for your world building of your comic book universe, that's pretty weak.
And it's crazy too, because looking at the media now, this is supposed to be something really connected. And it really doesn't. We've got Morbius. I mean, God forbid if that movie ever comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised I even remember that shit right
Mhm.
now. But God forbid, Morbius is supposed to be connected. We'll touch on the post credit scene in a little bit, but
Mhm.
now we've got confirmed Spider-Man's in the mix. You've
Yeah.
got the Madam Web TV show or something. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's
there's a
movie or
bunch of.
TV show.
I was looking at the Wikipedia article for the. It's not the SPUMC anymore, which was the Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel character, the Spunk,
It's
which was
the
hilarious.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Sony's
Movie
Spider-Man
universe now.
universe or something. It's really
Yeah,
it's much
Spunk.
lamer than Spunk.
Like Spunk.
No. They changed it from that. It used to be that.
It's like I don't even.
It's something
Dude,
lamer. It
it's
doesn't
something
matter.
It's so convoluted for no reason.
Yeah, but they've got so many projects in the work. There's a Madam Web, as you said. I think there's a movie. There's a Kraven the Hunter movie that's coming out January 2023. There is a Silver and Black that I think is Black Cat and Silver Sable show or something. There's a
I thought that's only been rumored though. I don't.
there's a few things like a Spider Woman movie that's being directed by Olivia Wilde. There's a Silk TV show, which is basically the only thing I'm actually excited for out of those because I really do like Silk and Cindy Moon and that whole thing from the comics, but it's a lot of weird setup that doesn't feel like it's leading anywhere. And the one thing that I do want to give this movie props for is that I think this could be a good sign for the future of it because it's tied into the MCU. If we're going to talk about, would you mind talking about the post credits now? Or?
Let's go into it. Seems natural, man.
Yeah. So if you think about it, Venom will clearly show up in No Way Home. That's what the post credits is setting up here. Having J. Jonah Jameson on the TV screen with the DailyBugle.net, having Tom Holland's Spider-Man show up and Venom like in the screen, which is weird. But Venom is in No Way Home, and then presumably he gets kicked back to his own universe at the end of that, or something happens, and Morbius is tangentially connected to the MCU in some way, but it's all multiverse stuff now. So I think what this could signal is that Sony knows that they can't do their Spider-Man-less universe without Spider-Man anymore. It's not working. The movies aren't good. The lack of connection is underwhelming and making people not care too much about these films. But hopefully, with this consideration that they are now at least tangentially connected to the MCU that is doing so well and is so good at continuity, they get someone who actually gives a shit about the continuity, about the pacing, about the world building, and make something that coalesces into something interesting. Because all of these are interesting characters that can be done well. They just haven't because it doesn't feel like there's an end goal. It doesn't feel like there's a focus or a coherency. And it's really all, I'm extrapolating this from the fact that now Venom is in the mainline MCU for a movie or whatever. But I really hope this could be a good thing.
And I feel like the one thing that brings joy at the end also kind of brings a discrepancy for me a little bit at the same time, is because I'm just going to take that post-credit scene. It's not very obvious what really happened.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it as he went to his universe. I'm going to assume they're on two different universes. That's how I'm going to explain my problem here, people. So maybe when we find out in December, I don't need people attacking me like, Ryan, you said this, you said that, all that good shit. I'm just going to say that he teleported to Spider-Man MCU's universe.
Yes.
Correct? He still has his own mainline franchise, his own third film that they've set up in his own universe because his ex-wife, Carnage, everything is still back within that universe.
Well, technically Carnage is within him and now they're there. So Carnage is technically
that's also leads into the problem is how they killed off Carnage so we can't get a maximum Carnage story, which I am so pissed about because, dude, when they announced Carnage for sequel to Venom, you're like, no way, they're leading up to Maximum Carnage. And when you watch Venom fucking soup him up like pasta, I'm like, no fucking way. I'm like, dude, I literally dropped my jaw and said, Tom Hardy wrote this. Then I literally just said that right there. And that's my main concern with this, the way they're doing their connected universes, because Sony's trying to have their own Spider-Man universe, but they're only going to have a tie between the MCU with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I can't imagine like Venom to go off to fight with Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? I picture all the Sony universe characters sticking within the Sony, and they'll
Unfortunately,
only
yeah.
cross over with the MCU when Spidey is involved. And
Yeah.
that's the part that I don't like. And even though he's on MCU universe, he's got his own story. He has to go back, and that goes for
Yes.
every character in the Sony Spider-Man Spunk, whatever the fuck it's called now,
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and it is weird, and it makes it feel very clear that the post-credit scene was filmed after the fact. I feel like the plan for No Way Home sort of came after Let There Be Carnage was sort of getting done with production, and like, okay, oh, well, Venom's actually going to be in this MCU movie for a little bit, and they're okay, fine, we'll film a 20-second scene after the fact. It's not connected. We're still setting up a third one on his own, but it feels really disconnected in an awkward way. I am, however, I am interested in learning more. I don't know how much we're going to learn, but learning more about what happened to cause Venom and Eddie to be teleported to the main Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Because my current fan theory, and I hope that I'm right with this because I think it would make things a lot easier, is that something happened in the universe, and it's the connection of all of these bursts of energy that we're seeing in the MCU. You've got the destruction of the timeline in Loki. You've got Wanda unlocking her powers in WandaVision. You've got Venom tapping into the ultimate knowledge of the symbiotes, and of course Doctor Strange making his spell for Peter. I think what I hope is that the multiverse breaks because of all the converging factors and not because of just one. Because if we get it was just Doctor Strange, then you have to think, okay, what happened with the Loki thing? There was clearly a burst of energy there. What did Wanda's thing break something else? Is Venom actually tapping into the multiverse? There's so many weird questions there that I hope they can all just tie it up in a bow and say, hey, no, look, it was just the convergence of all these things. Too much for the universe, the multiverse to handle. It broke wide open, and it's going to come back together at some point.
So what I'm convinced on is this takes place before the Doctor Strange thing.
Sure, okay.
So the way I see this is when they teleport back to that beach, right? The beach hotel room with the TV. You look at the news broadcast, and it's the one outing Spider-Man. When did we see that? At the end
of Far From Home.
Far From Home.
Oh, that's a good
so
point.
I'm gonna take this scene as it's correlating with when Spidey got outed at the end of Far From Home, and then
I think it's a slightly different one than the one in that Far From Home post-credit scene, but also you can extrapolate it very slightly, saying J. Jonah Jameson is never going to shut up about the fact that they know Peter Parker's identity. He's going to be doing those same broadcasts with the same content for the next 3 months of the existence of the universe.
I just want to know how they got like that superhero shot of him standing there without the mask.
True.
You know?
Yes, good point.
Like I'm like, homie was like literally on the run. When did he have time to sit there maskless, like standing all heroic and shit? And I think that's a really exciting thing about the MCU right now, and really expanding past the Infinity Saga.
Yes,
and connecting with the Spider-Man universe that Sony's got going on.
Spider-Man universe is multiple.
Like I'm excited for it, but like we've said, it doesn't work without Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it works better as a whole rather than its own half.
Sure.
And like you said, the whole Spider-Man universe, the whole MCU is just getting crazier now. You've got the end of Loki, which we don't even know what happened with that yet.
Yep.
What's going to happen with, bro? We only know what's happening with No Way Home. Can you imagine what's going to happen when it ends? What type of fucking cliffhanger we're going to get?
Lead straight into Multiverse of Badness.
Dude, it's got to. And it's funny, this post-credit scene, I don't want to say I saw this coming, but reading the Twitter reactions, I sat there, I'm like,
yes.
I don't think it's as crazy as I think it's gonna be, because literally Tom Hardy has been seen wearing a No Way Home production hat.
Yeah.
Literally, Andy Serkis fucking spoiled it when all these interviews pretty much just fucking spoil it. All these interviewers just like spoiling these films and who's gonna connect to who. So when Spidey finally popped up, I'm like, oh, that's fucking sick. Like, yeah, I'm excited, but I'm like, not as excited as I probably should be.
100%.
It really bites me because I'm really excited now after seeing how comfortable Tom Hardy is in this role, seeing how him and Venom kind of go off Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because I feel like they're
Yes.
all three very uniquely different characters.
Yeah,
And
I think for me, what the most exciting prospect of having Venom show up in No Way Home, though, I could have foresee him being like a C tier character. I don't think he's going to be super heavily involved. They're going to
Neither do
focus
I.
on Doc Ock and Green Goblin, and that's and probably Mysterio, and that's fine as it should be. But I think the best thing about Venom showing up in this universe, not only tying it together, not only finally having a on-screen Venom and Spider-Man that isn't from the Raimi universe, but is we get to see Tom Hardy and Venom, that version of that character, be done with much bigger budget, better CGI in a mainstream MCU movie, one of the biggest budget ones that they're making, and with better writing, because John Watts is a better writer than Tom Hardy is, and he's a better director than Andy Serkis is. So having all of that competency behind this character will make his whatever amount of screen time he has in No Way Home be the best version of that character that we've seen, and that's really exciting.
I'm definitely, so the way I think he's gonna play into No Way Home is if he doesn't have a small role in the movie as a whole, I think he's just gonna be a post-credit scene.
Oh, okay.
I see a lot of people talk. I don't want to say you see people talking, but like the people having group chats and stuff have been talking, and they're like, "What if he's the sixth Sinister Six member?" And I'm like, "There's too many Spider-Man villains within the past 2 movies alone that they've set up to be against Spider-Man that I don't think that they would just throw Venom in to throw him in, because Marvel have already learned their lesson by doing that with Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
And I feel like after this movie, Venom Let There Be Carnage, I think they're comfortable with letting Tom Hardy be in this role and being their Venom. And after the first movie, I wasn't too sure. Like you said, that accent really wasn't it.
Yes.
And if you think about it, Venom didn't have too much dialogue in that first movie. And in this one, he's actually a character this time, which I thought, again, was a massive improvement. I really liked seeing that quippy dialogue. I don't know if I say quippy, just more of a complaining. Banter. And I really like the physical comedy within this.
A lot of
Definitely,
slapstick.
Yeah, really used Venom's abilities and his liquidy form or symbiotic form to its best ability. And you touched on it with the CGI. I still like the look of Venom. I think the CGI is really good. They have a problem with their villains.
Yeah.
They don't know how to color anything correctly.
Yes.
Carnage is literally this bright red figure of liquid just like spewing all over the place in the comics. And this Venom is like a tinted red that just looks dirty. And I can barely tell where his eyes are unless they do a close-up shot of his face. But with at least Venom, because his eyes are so white, it helps me
there's a contrast.
the contrast, but everything just doesn't mesh as well. And just like the first movie, when they're fighting and like going into each other, it's hard to keep track of who's who.
100%. It's so interesting to see that. I think you're right. I think his animation and the utilization of his abilities in the slapstick is great. When they're bouncing around the apartment and they're smashing stuff and the two of them are fighting, I love that. But as soon as you put that into a fighting environment, it just becomes a CGI clusterfuck. And it really shows that they don't know how to deal with these characters that can basically do anything. They can stretch in any forms. They can chomp through and break through anything they need to. But there's no like iconic shots of them breaking anything. They don't do anything creative with the environment. It's really underwhelming. And that's one thing that I will say I still prefer the first movie with is the combat in the first movie of Venom and Eddie not knowing how to work together. So him like shooting the spikes out of his back or throwing his arm and then just Venom comes out of his arm and stuff. There's less of that in this film, and that makes it a little less visually distinct. You're pretty much only in Venom form for like his fingers or his hands or whatever, or full Venom form. And that really makes it feel less creative and less visually distinct.
And this movie doesn't have very good scene continuity
No,
either.
no.
I don't know if you noticed when Cletus went to break Shriek out of prison and he was talking to the doctor on the other side of the wall, and you just see Carnage's slime go around the door or
Yeah.
over the top and strangle her. The next shot, I'm like, there's a giant wall there. There's
Yeah.
no vents. You're telling me Carnage just went through the wall and choked her just to kill her.
Mhm.
And it's funny because it's not a big thing when you look at it, but
Yeah.
when you think about it, it's a massive thing. I don't know if that's
Why not just
like,
put a vent there?
exactly.
Done.
Why not just put a vent there? Like CGI a vent in.
Mhm.
That's all you had to do. Like you didn't have to show us him going through the vent. You just had to show us that there was a vent there, like there was a possible point of entry. It's the little things that I feel like in filmmaking that we don't notice, but also some things that we do notice. And these are the things we do need to notice more, and that's
Yeah.
scene continuity. Because I've spoke to so many people, and they're like, "What do you mean they broke scene continuity?" I'm like, "Bro, do you not know what scene continuity is? The fuck
Mhm,
you? The
mhm.
last time I checked, my ass can't go through this wall right here,
Yeah.
unless I really throw myself. Like that's like some big gripes of
Mhm.
mine. I guess maybe that's because like I'm a filmmaker
Yeah.
and shit like that. So I don't know if it's because I feel like I nitpick sometimes, but man,
I think that's okay with this film, though. When you look at how poorly paced it is and how, on the whole, poorly written it is, and the characters don't really develop too much, and there's very few memorable sequences, and it ends in this clusterfuck, I think it's fine to add on top. Yeah, why didn't they also pay attention just slightly more? Because that wouldn't have improved the film a ton, but it is those little moments that just keep adding on top of the snowball. And it's really frustrating, especially because I think that Carnage isn't really handled that well in this. As a character, Carnage the symbiote, it barely any dialogue.
it's not even a symbiote in this movie, which
True,
is another
great point.
issue of mine.
Yeah. Subverting the actual or comic book origins and the source material, like you're saying, barely having any dialogue or barely any interaction with Cletus Cassidy, so you don't get their interplay. He basically just uses the same kind of moves that Venom does, but more of like webby stuff, which is pretty cool. But it's just a very underwhelming utilization of a character that should be pretty different from Venom, but does not feel that way at all.
I don't really understand Carnage in this movie because,
Yeah.
like we said, he's not a symbiote in this movie. He's just a piece of Venom and Eddie's blood that
Yeah.
mutated in Cletus's body
Yeah.
that only came out once he was injected with draw. I don't really get that really too much, but then you go even further down, like, yeah, how does Carnage have its own mind,
Mhm.
his own tall, if he's not its own figure?
True. Yeah.
So you get that disconnect of what am I looking at? Because the whole first movie really digs deep on symbiosis, having a true match. Like,
Yeah.
does that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
matter for this character? There's so many questions that I have that I'm never going to get the answer because they said fuck it and killed Cletus Cassidy at the
Yep.
end too, which is another issue. They just bit his head, and I'm like, bro, come on, you guys, bro. I literally could not handle, like, this is the type of disrespect of Spider-Man 3 Venom. That's
Yeah.
the category I put this under. I'm like, how do you guys Sony has done it twice now. It's both time has been Sony. The first time Venom was so shoehorned in
Mhm.
and just done an absolute disjustice in that movie.
Yeah.
And then they did it again with Carnage. Like, bro, Carnage does not even look that much like Carnage in the comic book. I have a few
Mhm.
friends that like the design, but like I said, they only look good, or he only looks good when it's close-ups and you see the
Yeah.
small details.
Yeah,
But
I
when
mean,
it's
when
wide
you
shots,
get
it's ugly.
You're right. When you get those close-up shots of Carnage's face, there's a pretty cool like facial design there of the eyes sort of blending into the middle of the face and the teeth coming out at different angles and stuff. But you're right, you only see that in the close-ups. And so when you're in the farther away shots, like, oh, he's just a red blob with like some spikes. That's about it.
Yeah, and Another issue I have is really understanding what the weaknesses are of Venom, at least.
Hmm.
Because we're told that it's fire and it's the loud noises,
Yes.
right? Those are the two rules. But then when he's fighting against Carnage, why is he getting super harmed from being stabbed with Carnage's like mutated
Yeah.
hand?
True.
Because the whole point of this fight is that's literally how they defeat Carnage too, is by smacking the bell to create the sound wave. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna assume he has the same exact disability or
Yes.
weaknesses,
Yes.
and it's also one of those disconnects that I just don't understand. Like, is it so hard to tell me that they can weaken each other? Because the entire time
Mhm.
I don't feel like they can weaken each
Yeah,
other.
you're right. There's no stakes. But bringing back to what we said earlier, no stakes is
Until
they're
there needs
saying
to be, at
fire and
least.
sound, fire and sound, fire and sound. Okay, but they're slicing through each other and punching each other and throwing each other into walls. But none of this matters, right? Because they can't be hurt by those because they're not fire and sound. And then they use the fire in a really shoehorned way. They have Dan show up, go, fire and sound. Remember? Hey guys, knock knock knock. Fire hurts them. Pour fire on top of Carnage. And then they use sound in with the bell. But then it weakens Venom. They do the whole thing of okay, they're not like paired, they're not symbiotic, but that doesn't actually play out. Like maybe that's why Venom survives and Carnage doesn't. It's really strange. It's really strange, and that's one of the biggest weaknesses of that third act. Like you were saying, it just feels like they didn't know what direction to go. They were introducing all these elements. They didn't know which ones actually were meaning anything, and they just mished it all up and were like, "Here, Venom won. Congratulations."
And we haven't even touched on his relationship with Anne and Dan in this
Yeah.
movie. Because, like, I like Michelle Williams. I like
Mhm.
her
Yeah.
as an actress, but in the first movie, in this movie, she's useless. She does nothing. She's only in this movie to get Venom back to Eddie.
Yes.
And I was having an argument with my friend, and she's like, but that's the reason why she's there. She needs to get them back together. But I'm like, she doesn't even find him. Eddie literally tells her where he is.
Mhm.
Like, he's in the fucking grocery store with Mrs. Chen.
Yes.
And another issue with the symbiosis is him going around through all these bodies. I
Mhm.
can't tell if he's killing them because he's not he's not in the correct symbiosis with them, and because he's supposed to be that perfect pair with Eddie,
Mhm.
or if because he's super down hard and heavy about what happened with Eddie that he's just drinking the body away. Because they
Yeah.
look like they just throw up and just have a really bad hangover.
Mhm.
That's how I
I
took it.
I thought they were dead, honestly, but I guess it's hard to tell because a PG-13 and B very fast paced and C the continuity is pretty poor. So all of that is happening, and then you even maybe think of something else is if he's really only supposed to be able to bond with Eddie because of the perfect pair or whatever. Why is Anne fine? She's totally fine when
Yeah.
Venom is in her
Twice
for
too it's
yeah for
happened.
multiple times
And
exactly.
Mrs. Yen.
Mrs. Chen, yeah, for an indiscriminate amount of time.
Yeah, you sit there and just like the movie bends its own ideas and its own
Multiple
rules
times.
in
Yeah.
favor of the story. And that's my biggest gripes when movies do this, because that's when you connect or really have the disconnect between having to care about certain things because you don't know what's supposed to matter unless the character is supposed to be dying. Like I said before, they're hurting each other, but it doesn't matter until, oh wait, Carnage stabs Venom and Eddie through the back into the heart and just randomly damages him to the point where he's like limping,
Yeah, he's like
and
weakened.
and they fall down and he gets crushed by rubble. Like, I
And then
don't.
he's sitting there, oh.
Yeah, like, bro, do you not see how fucking jacked you are?
Yeah.
Like, bro, you literally were just
Rocks,
tossing.
bro.
Yeah, dude, literally, it is just rocks. If fucking Tom Holland Spider-Man can get out of that, that fucker can get out of
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
Holland had more on him.
Yeah, the
And
whole building.
yeah, he had a whole fucking building. This fucking Venom pussy ass, like he said.
Yep.
And you know what, man? I was not expecting very much from this movie, but I will give the movie the compliment of enjoying those first two acts because of Eddie and Venom's relationship. I guess we start getting into the wrap up, my man. What are some of your final thoughts? Where would you grade this? Go ahead.
when I walked out of this movie, the first thing that I said, I was talking to my friends, and we were like, "Yeah, that wasn't good. No, that's a bad movie." But it's kind of exactly what I expected. It's not what I hoped for. I hoped that they would be able to solidify the identity, give the story the pacing that it deserves, tie in the future characters of Carnage and Cletus and all that better. But I did expect it to just be a sequel to Venom, and Venom wasn't good, and this was a very clear continuation of that. I think it's a better movie than Venom. I think it's got a stronger identity. I think Cletus is a better character than Riot was, and Carnage is better visually. I think it knows that the slapstick humor between Eddie and Venom is the best aspect of the series, and of course, it's got a great post credit scene that gets me excited for the future. But other than that, it's poorly paced. It's got a poor script. It's got bad continuity. It's got a terrible third act. So it's just a bad movie. And my take comes down at a 4 out of 10, 2 out of 5, and which is just slightly above Venom, which I have at a 3 out of 10. Because I think that they're not ungodly terrible. Like, the CGI is good enough. Tom Hardy is good enough, and he's good in some sequences. So there's a few redeeming factors, but man, these are just sloppy, like, cash grab films.
No, honestly, I totally agree with you. I had no expectations going into this movie because I only just watched Venom, the first one, for the first time yesterday before Venom 2 since
Really?
the
Okay.
theater in October of 2018.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's
Yeah.
literally been 3 years since yesterday since I'd seen Venom. And I'm like, maybe I've just been really hard on this movie my
Mhm.
entire life. You know what? Maybe the media has infected me with its hatred. I sat there and I'm like, nope, it's all
No, it's a bad
reaffirmed.
movie.
It's a bad movie. And I'm like, I'm trying to tell myself, I'm watching these trailers. I'm like, it can't be worse. It can't be worse. They got Carnage. It can't be worse. And unfortunately, it's better, but not by very much.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
by very much. You gave it a 4 out of 10. I give it a 5.5.
Okay.
And I truly think that the highlight of this movie is the Venom and Tom Hardy relationship.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
truly think Tom Hardy really sells it playing both roles at the same time. He
Mhm.
does a really good job, and he feels very comfortable in this role now, which you can see between the first movie and the second movie, which shows some type of growth with not only the actor but the characters themselves.
Sure.
I feel like you do get a satisfying ending if you truly look in the regards of their relationship and nothing more, because I
Mhm.
really feel like that's what the core of this movie was for.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you name a movie Venom Let There Be Carnage and have one of the titular characters fucking suck pretty much,
Yeah. Mhm.
that's when you lose me. Carnage and Woody Harrelson just did not mesh well for me. Woody Harrelson was miscasted for me. I feel like that might be the hot take of this video, I guess you can
No,
say, because
that's totally fine.
I feel like a lot of people do like him in this movie, and I totally get it, to each their own. But I feel like I know Woody Harrelson can play the sadistic killer, but the
Yes.
PG-13 really hurt it. And I don't think they did it well enough. Unfortunately, they have to start leaning on Spider-Man to start getting these more hype things. I
Mhm.
don't know how this movie is going to do box office wise, because that first one was literally a fucking phenomenon. No one
Yeah.
pictured that getting almost
Mhm.
$1 billion. Almost like Joker, but fuck me at the same time, right? But yeah, man, Tucker, I want to thank you so much for coming on, man. Before we wrap it up and get out of here, where can we find you, my man?
I do a lot of YouTube videos, believe it or not, and I say that they're podcasts, but we really only post them in video format because I think that's the easiest way for me to engage with that kind of content. But I do on my channel, Backlog Banter. I should have said that up top. I do video game videos, discussions with my friends. We do we do multiple weekly shows, so it shows you how much stuff we're cranking out. But we've got a show called Backlog Banter. It's us bantering about our backlogs. We talk about the games we've been playing in the past week, and that's it. That's the entire show. It's kind of a more specific thing. We do movie reviews through the Quest for the Bestest, is us reviewing and ranking all the Oscar-winning Best Picture winners. So we're currently almost 50 episodes into that and making our way through. And then just tons of other videos on top of that. Anything comic or movie or game related that you could want, we try to cover it. I think at minimum 5 videos a week. So if you're looking for an influx of nerd content, I got you covered. And of course, I also have a Twitter, which is just my name, Tucker_Hazel, 2 L's, Hazell. And I'd love to get some more followers. I'd love to see you guys check out my content and, just get to know me because I love meeting new people.
No, yeah, guys, definitely go check them out. Good content. Check them out when we were setting this up. Good guys. Definitely want to content create more in the future. Thank you guys so much for coming on, Tucker. Really appreciate it, man. Really good out here doing these new face cams, talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to say, before I wrap this up, it's really good to live right now because, man, the CBM era is upon us, my man. And it's good to see you talk, nerd out about it. And thank you guys so much for sitting here every week and watching. See you guys on the next one. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. See you on the next one. Peace.